Hey everybody, welcome to the Star Wars Canon Cantina, a show where we try to answer the question, who is Luke Skywalker, before the release of Star Wars Episode 9. How you doing everybody? My name is Mike. I'm broadcasting here from Salt Lake Base on planet Utah. I had some snow in my backyard this week. It was great. Hope you all had a good American Thanksgiving for those listeners in the US, and I hope you had a good Thursday for our listeners abroad. As always, I'm joined by my co-host and Star Wars best friend, Jesse. How's it going, bud?
I'm doing great, Mike. I'm ready to talk Star Wars today, and we're right back in the Marvel Universe, and that's always fun because this stuff is new for me, so I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, me too. This was a fun, divergent story, I guess, that we had this week. Right. We are talking about the story arc Yoda's Secret War from the current Marvel Comics line. Written by Jason Aaron with art by Salvador LaRocca. And they were if they didn't do the first arc, they did one of the first two arcs together. I forget the order. So writer and artist paired up that we'd seen before, continued their high level of production with a story that goes in a direction you might not expect after the end of our last Marvel episode.
That's right. So if you guys remember, our last Marvel episode ended with the Scar Squadron Stormtrooper Commandos capturing C-3PO. And the start of this story, we have all the good guys, Luke, Han, Leia, R2, Chewbacca, discussing what they're going to do with getting back to 3PO. But, that's where we pick up today. But before we get into that, Mike, we got to go over our Luke Skywalker-centric questions. So we're going to look at Luke's state in this story, and we're going to address these questions as we go through it. So the first question is, what state is Luke in at the beginning of the story? How do the events and characters of the story depict his development as a hero? Is this consistent with the character presented in the films, current Marvel comics, and new canon books? And will this lead to the Luke we see 30 years later in The Last Jedi?
Yeah, so we're looking at, just consistency across this new canon here. I'm excited for this one. Let's go ahead and jump into it.
Ever since Luke disappeared, people have been looking for him.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
A lot of rumors, stories.
And I became a legend.
People that knew him best.
Luke. Young Skywalker. Luke.
It's all true.
I am a Jedi. Like my father before me.
All of it.
So I know you said we start with our heroes, but we actually start with Scar Squadron aboard the Devastator in one of the funnier scenes of the book. I know Luke's not in it, but 3PO is being interrogated by Scar Squadron, and they asked
like,
him...
This is not fun.
Yeah,
that's what they say.
Literally all we did was ask it one question, and now we can't get the stupid thing to shut up. 3PO's talking about how he was there destroying the Death Star and events from other Marvel comics, which is perfect 3PO, not being self-aware enough to know what to say and what not to. And Scar Squadron's...
He's incriminating himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Scar Squadron's reaction is just as funny. It's like, this is the worst interrogation I've ever done. I didn't get to do anything fun. And they relay all this to Darth Vader, who says, "Get rid of it. It is nothing more than useless junk." Do you think Vader recognizes 3PO at this point? Or is that more in there for the reader?
I think it's more there for the reader. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, do you recognize your own droid you made for your mom? But, all protocol droids and R2 units,
there's lots of protocol 3PO units out there. Right. Yeah, that's probably more in there for the reader.
3PO is the iPad with the gold back, not the silver back. You know what I mean? It's like,
that's funny.
There's still just a tool for a lot of people. So I don't think Vader acknowledges it either. But an interesting start to the story indeed, Mike. And then we jump right to our heroes, and Han is being Han. He's just saying, like, no offense, Luke, but 3PO is just a droid. We got tons of droids here. It's kind of suicide to go back and save him. And Luke's like, no, we need to save 3PO.
And Leia is somewhere in the middle, treating 3PO as more than just another droid, but also she would say this about any one person, I think, that we can't risk the entire fleet for one person. And all of this is on a really cool splash panel showing the Rebel fleet hiding in an asteroid field. with X-wings,
that.
Y-wings everywhere. I do have a question, though. Why is this Nebulon frigate facing the wrong way from the rest of the fleet? Because we're seeing the engines of another frigate and all the X-wings and the blockade
That's true.
runners. Why is it facing the other direction?
I have no idea.
But yeah, the ship, the Falcon,
there's
is
even a
docked to.
Moncala.
Oh yeah, there's A-wings in there too. Going the wrong way.
I'm pretty sure this ship on the far right, Mike, is a Hammerhead Corvette too, with the three tri engines.
Could just be another Nebulon Corvette though. They had the same back.
Yeah, it could be.
Could be. Yeah.
So
That's another level of nerdy from playing the TIE Fighter video games. Way back when.
But what's really interesting is at this point, Luke actually sets off Mike in his X-Wing, chasing another X-Wing, piloted by R2-D2. As
Luke
in R2 has commandeered an X-Wing.
R2 showing a little bit of that chopper pirate spirit. Luke's not the first to go after 3PO because R2 is. He stole Luke's X-Wing, forcing Luke to take somebody else's X-Wing.
Right. With another astromech in there.
Yeah, Luke is traveling with an astromech named S4, who we get the impression is a little bit of a wimp because in astromech language, R2 intimidates S4 into shutting down Luke's hyperdrive so that Luke can't follow R2 to stop
R2.
him.
That's so R2. Yeah,
not stubborn at all.
R2 goes in light speed, and we do not know where he goes, Mike. This is pretty interesting thread that just starts at the beginning of the story, and we will see where it goes. But Luke can't catch him, so that's the start there.
Yeah. So what do you do when you're drifting in space with a astromech unit you're not familiar with who's trying to fix your hyperdrive? You read a book. And Luke breaks out his journal of Ben Kenobi that he'd picked up a couple story arcs ago.
That's right. He's been slowly reading it, slowly.
And he decides to read about one of the greatest Jedi warriors, somebody who had to be the most powerful, biggest warrior Luke had ever, the biggest, scariest Jedi who ever lived, according to Luke.
That's what Luke says, yeah.
Yeah. And the story's about Yoda. So obviously, even if Yoda is referenced by name, he's not described as looking like Yoda because Luke thinks he's the entire time. Luke thinks he's Wookiee sized or bigger Jedi doing all this stuff, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, and the story starts with Yoda rescuing a child from pirates, and the pirates try to kill Yoda, and he tells them, "Please don't try to fight me. It's not going to work." And he never pulls out his lightsaber. Very, very Yoda-esque here. He just basically throws all the pirates around with the Force, and they never touch him.
Yeah. I will say that the art in this arc for the heroes is just all right. Sometimes it gets a little too photoreal and being kind of weird, but Yoda, for the most part, is really well done.
Yeah. So Yoda saves the child, and we go to a scene that I really liked seeing, Mike. That was a pleasant surprise for me. We see Yoda go over to his Jedi starfighter, which is the green one, and there's other Jedi starfighters parked by it. And we see Master Qui-Gon Jinn and Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi come out and speak with Yoda. And Yoda says, "Escort this child back to Coruscant, where he's safe. And this is you guys' mission." And Qui-Gon basically says, "Everything all right, my master?" And Yoda says, "On the way here, a disturbance in the Force I felt." And basically Yoda says, "A calling, follow it I must." And so Yoda puts the child in their care, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and he goes off to discover this disturbance.
Yeah, so it is neat seeing the three Jedi starfighters, the earlier Aether Sprite models, not the episode 3 Jedi starfighters
not the interceptors.
For you X-Wing players out there. And it is funny that Yoda's is like just smaller than Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon's. It's neat seeing Qui-Gon letting us know this is before episode 1. They don't explain how they shove this person they're rescuing in these single seat starfighters.
Just a child.
Is Qui-Gon like, "Hey, Obi-Wan, you're the Padawan. They get to sit on your lap all the way back to Coruscant."
Picked up another pathetic life form.
Maybe that's where he started getting the catchphrase.
Yeah. But we immediately see Yoda fly to this planet, and the planet is surrounded by an asteroid belt, and it's dense, but Yoda pilots it just fine, getting through that. And the second Yoda lands on the planet, we have a unique looking planet, and it starts off with Yoda encountering a bunch of children, right? Like kind of Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies style tribal like children, and it's a surprise to Yoda as well. So this is a podcast about Luke Skywalker, but Luke is reading Yoda's adventure, and it will tie back into Luke, I promise. So we're just going to kind of keep going through it like this.
Well, who doesn't want to hear a Yoda story? This is great. Because we know so little about Yoda. So, but you're right. The kids try to kill him with these spears that are made out of these crystal arrowheads on the end. And Yoda basically does Yoda things, and he waves them away, and then he uses rocks to block the spears and all that good stuff. And Yoda's basically saying, please don't fight me. I don't want to hurt you.
So these spears are shown to be special blue glowy things. And these kids are talking about sky screams and rock hawk. No, that's not right. Where is it? Mucktown is where they live. And they're talking about rock hawkers. I was right the first time. So there are basically...
I kept reading that as Starscream. Proceed.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
So we're led to believe there's these different fighting tribes, and Yoda has aligned himself with the tribe of kids who have an adult prisoner who... so there's some stuff that goes down. Yoda's like, hey, stop fighting. I'm going to free your prisoner and take him away from here so that you don't murder him and there's no fighting. And Yoda comes to find out that all of the different warring tribes on the surface of this planet are different tribes of children. You've got your kids who he met first, and then you have your teenagers who sort of reminded me of, God, what's his name in the new Mad Max movie that we're supposed to be sympathetic to? The one who ends up turning. No, not the villain, but the expendable warrior who ends up.
Oh, yeah.
What's his name?
I can't remember his name either. But you're saying, the visual look of these guys is a lot like that too, right?
Yeah. They look very new Mad Max.
Yeah. They've got face paint, and they've painted skulls on their faces and things like that. And Yoda takes the prisoner to them, the other tribe, and
Yoda brings this adult prisoner to another tribe thinking he's going to find adults, but he just finds angry teenagers. And what's the worst thing in the world? Teenagers.
That's right.
So they assault him with their own special blue glowy force rocks, and he's like, no, cannot fight children, must not, as he gets knocked out by
these
a rock that they're throwing at him. So teenagers are the worst, even in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, and what's something interesting, Mike, we haven't mentioned this yet, but these kids on this planet, both the first tribe and the Mad Max kids, are force sensitive. They have the force in some way. They call it stone power. And they witness Yoda's force powers, and they say, oh, he's really strong in his stone powers. And we see that they use the force in subtle ways, like throwing these rocks and things like that, shooting them out of their hands like a little force push and things like that. And it's basically embedded into their culture, but it's not the force for them that they know of.
That's right. And this is a piece of new canon that I really like. It's similar to Lor San Tekka and the Church of the Force. We meet him at the beginning of episode 7, Force Awakens. There are some other groups mentioned.
The Wills?
The Wills. There's one in the book, The Legends of Luke Skywalker, that we'll get to at some point, that talk about the Force, but they call it the Tide. It is interesting to see the Force manifesting itself to other groups, not just the Jedi. And even though they might not be as strong as the Jedi, there are other groups that interact with and commune with the Force in their own way. It's one of the cooler things they've added in the new canon, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, this is interesting. And I'm always interested, Mike, by the idea of Force sensitives, not necessarily Jedi and Sith, and what that looks like. So Yoda, of course, wakes up and he's in chains, and they tell him,
He's in special blue glowy Force Rock chains.
Yeah, Force Rock chains. And they tell him, you got to do something for us now. You need to go to the heart of the mountain. Get going. And there's an interesting line here in the Obi-Wan's journal. Keep in mind, this is Obi-Wan's journal. So Obi-Wan was at the beginning of the story, so he witnessed Yoda going on this mission. But it says, he was the most powerful Jedi Master I'd ever known. But on that day, he'd never felt more helpless. He never felt so small. There's some poetry there of Yoda being actually small. But so Yoda actually starts ascending the mountain he's being forced to by these guys, but he actually feels it calling to him too. So he starts doing that.
And this is very Lord of the Rings-esque, giant mountain with, like it looks like stairs built into it, snowy. Yoda is going, and they sent this adult prisoner that he freed with him, and this adult's like, screw you and screw them. I'm not going in there because everybody who goes in the mountain doesn't come out.
That's true. And we have a kind of a montage thing of Yoda going through the trials, up the mountain, the weather, the conditions, and he realizes once he gets inside the mountain that he is not alone. He senses other beings there, and we see Yoda turn on his lightsaber for illumination, not for aggression, and he's surrounded by another tribe.
He ignites it for defense here, is how I read it.
Yeah.
The Force told him to light it up to block one of these big spears from hitting him. Either way, there is like a definite green glow over everything inside this dark cave, and they've found everybody's parents. So again, we've got that Lord of the Flies or that South Park episode feel where all the parents left the kids in town and they had to reunite with them eventually. But the parents are like, no, you've been out there, teenagers, they're the worst. We're at least safe from them in here.
Yeah, the parents basically say, Yoda says, why don't you go to them? Why don't you help them, bring them in line? And they basically say, out there, it's war. It's war between all the children's tribes, and we want to have nothing to do with the war. We want to live, and we want to be safe.
Even though they started the war.
Isn't that interesting? So Yoda is kind of a true Jedi in this story, Mike. He is a peacekeeper going between factions, and he's trying to talk sense into everybody. He's clearly done this now with 3 different tribes. And then it gets a little bit more mystical, I guess.
Well, Yoda not runs away, but he separates from the adult tribe, and he finds another survivor in the cave. It's a child named Garrow, who Yoda rescues, and instead of Yoda immediately like taking the child out of the cave, he says, teach me the ways of the stone power. Your most humble and devoted student I will be. So Yoda calls this kid his master. He wants to learn how this tribe interacts with the Force, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And we kind of assume a lot of time passes because they start training, and then we have a scene of Obi-Wan again, Mike. So as you guys know, if you followed us on the show, as we've been doing these Marvel comics, we've been seeing scenes of Obi-Wan in his solitude on Tatooine, watching over Luke and the struggles he faces.
Yeah.
So this starts off with Obi-Wan on Mos Eisley, I'm assuming. It could be Mos Espa. Who knows?
I think it's probably Mos Eisley because we see some Rhodians in a classic Western,
that's what I was gonna
duel,
say. But
one of them's Greedo, which is an unnecessary detail, I think. But that's fine. And I will say that the Obi-Wan Kenobi we see in these comics doesn't look like you. The last couple arcs we saw him in, yes, but this one, not so much. Although I am looking...
This is a new style.
I am looking at this scene, or this page where the Old West duel is happening, and at the bottom next to Obi-Wan, there's a guy wearing like, I don't want to call it armor, but like a suit. He looks like some of the guys from Nema Outpost on Jakku in Episode 7.
Yeah,
He's got,
definitely.
Like, the 2 tubes coming out of his head kind of thing.
Yeah, so they're tying it all together, and you see a lot of the Mos Eisley machinery and stuff in the background in some of these shots. But essentially, Obi-Wan intervenes on the duel by doing a little mind trick from the crowd, and basically tells the guys, go buy each other a drink.
Greedo.
Yeah.
Somebody tell Han that.
Yeah, he says, why don't you guys go buy each other a drink instead of shooting each other? And they both say, let's go buy each other a drink. And Greedo doesn't die, which is great. So, but then Obi-Wan gets approached by this hooded character with this symbol on his head. And this is pretty interesting. The character says, if this place is your mountain, hold fast to it, Jedi. And Obi-Wan says, Jedi? Now you really must have me confused with someone. He says, and no matter what, never leave the caves. And Obi-Wan says, wait, what? And the guy leaves. And then there's a little thing here at the end of the page that says, through flesh may fade and mountains may crumble, the lessons of the Jedi never grow old. So this is kind of we're tying these three characters together, Mike, Luke, Obi-Wan, and Yoda through this lesson.
Yeah. And something I'm noticing on my second pass through as we're going through the story here, speaking of episode 7, the panel above the one that you just read, there's the episode 7 style hammerhead alien with the full mouth on the front. And I think that little turtley guy with the white beard, he had a story written in Journey to the Force Awakens. His name's like Old Joe. That might be the guy from Rebels, but it's like he's an old storyteller or something. You see him in episode 7.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw him come on stage at a celebration when we went.
Oh,
like
that's
the puppetry.
Right. Yeah.
And we were like in shock. And he has all those little animals on his in cages on his back. He has a huge backpack. You guys would recognize him from the movie. He's very dark crystal looking.
Yeah. I wonder well, and then if you look back a page before, you see a guy who looks just like one of the crew that Finn was supposed to go with on Takodana. Once he left, Han and Rey, and was going to escape the First Order. It's the page before the one that you just read, the though flesh may fade one. He's on the second panel down, that the big dude on the left saying, Poodoo. So I wonder if like these three characters are supposed to be the same people we see at Maz's or just cantina
those
on
races.
Takodana.
Maybe.
Well, I don't know. That's having the three of them across the 2-page spread.
Intentional.
I might usually say that that's a little much, like having that Rodian in the duel be Greedo. But if there's a neat story tying Mos Espa, Mos Eisley, wherever we're at to, and these characters to Takodana and Mos's cantina, could be cool. Anyway, that's something I just noticed on our second pass through here.
And we know Greedo spends a lot of time at Mos Eisley, so it's not inconsistent. But so that's the last quote on the Obi-Wan journal, and then we see Luke again reading the journal, and there's another line. That is why stories must be presented and passed on, so the learning never stops. And Luke says, this could be it. This could be what I've been looking for. He finds a symbol in the book. This is how I save 3PO and R2. Yeah, this is how I become a Jedi. And Luke just takes off in his X-Wing. And then the other Obi-Wan quote says, no matter how old we grow, there's always something else out there waiting to be learned. And then we go back to Yoda learning the tribal version of the Force.
Yeah, but let's go back to Luke in the X-Wing. He sees, Obi-Wan started the spiral. Then he finished the spiral. Oh, this is the same spiral that was on that guy's forehead that we saw 2 pages ago. And let's chart a spiral course along this heading. And this is how I finally become a Jedi. It's a little weak.
Yeah, Luke's being a little naive and reaching a little much.
I'm not even blaming Luke at this point. I'm blaming Jason Aaron. I know you had to get Luke to this planet somehow, but tying it to just a spiral is a little weak even for, the rules of Star Wars space travel, in my opinion.
Okay. So we see Yoda training with the young boy who's very skilled in the Stone Force. I don't know what we want to call it.
Yeah, that's what they call it. The Stone Force. That's right, I think.
But they essentially together training realize that the blue stuff is something of importance, Mike. It's the mountain is actually alive. And
yeah, all of these spears and rocks that we've seen that are glowing this blue special force color, they are actually, Yoda learns, pieces of the heart of a giant stone mountain creature.
Yeah, and Mike, I thought that you would have not enjoyed this part because this to me reminded me very much of like the Bendu and stuff and Rebels, like very Dave Filoni's Force stuff.
I can see that. It reminded me actually of playing through parts of Guild Wars 2. And there are some not exactly like this, but there are some creatures like that. I'm like, oh hey, those were cool parts of that video game. I'm okay with it, I guess.
One, it's consistent with the Yoda we see in canon because the last arc of the Clone Wars before this new season that comes out next year was a several episode arc with Yoda kind of following where the Force guided him, and it led him to these different cultures and races that use the Force in different ways, and they were some of them more mystical than others. And he's presented with visions of the dark side and all kinds of stuff. So it's pretty cool that we have another Yoda thing going on like that.
Yoda is consistent. He's great in this. And as for this heart of blue glowing rock that is actually the heart of a creature the size of a mountain, I can see why you would say I wouldn't like it like the Bendu or anything. But it's not really directly connected to the Force. And I feel like the Bendu had potential. It was just wasted in Rebels after the first couple episodes. So I'm totally cool with giant mountain-sized stone creatures that somehow have hearts powered by the Force. That's neat and different. And maybe they just pay off better here than the Bendu did.
Fair enough. So what do they do next, Mike, with the mountain? What do we got here?
Yeah, so at this point, Yoda figures out, oh, this is a living thing that we're inside of. And he starts meditating for several days. After 9 days, the Jedi Master first heard the voice. And so eventually all this meditating and communing woke up this mountain creature. And Yoda's like, hey, Garrow, we need to get out of here. This guy's going to wake up and he's going to be hungry.
Yeah. The mountain giant from the Neverending Story is what I was picturing.
Nice.
And then he stands up, and Yoda and the boy go back to the tribe, try to warn them. They tell them about what they experienced in the mountain, the heart of the mountain. And Yoda talks about the fight against anger and hatred is controlling you guys, starting these wars. Be not a slave to fear. Fear does not make us stronger. Fear only makes us small. And then we see the mountain just rear up, and he's this giant elemental rock golem mountain thing. And I mentioned, Mike, here, you mentioned Lord of the Rings. I made a Lord of the Rings note here. It says, the voice bellowed like a volcano. The Jedi's ears went numb. And Yoda says, in the Force, we are all equal. Sacred, all life is, even bugs like me. I wish to harm you not, because the giant just called Yoda a bug, but allowed to pass, you shall not be. So I immediately thought of the Bridge of Khazad-dûm.
Oh, yeah.
With Gandalf and the Balrog, probably one of the greatest scenes in all, Lord of the Rings, and also a lot of just literary stuff. And it's kind of an interesting nod. Maybe it's completely unintentional, but it's literally the "you shall not pass" line in Yoda language. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah. So we see here, right at the same time as all of what Jesse just talked about is going on, Garrow is reunited with his former tribe, and he doesn't like betray Yoda in the sense that he like captures him, but he betrays the light side. He decides to use this newly awakened rock monster for the gain of his own tribe instead of to reunite everybody.
That's right. Yeah. And here's the really interesting part, Mike, and this speaks to Luke a lot. They start talking the tribe about what the giant looks like and how Yoda's going to be destroyed. And then we immediately cut to Luke pulling into the system. And we don't know what happens yet because Luke puts the book down and lands on the planet. And he starts scanning for life, and he finds the giant on the ground looking like it's deceased. And
yeah, it was very blue earlier, but now it's black and looks like, lava stone.
Right. And then the droid says a lot of things to Luke, his new astromech, and Luke says, okay, maybe I should have read the whole story first, but I was just too anxious to get here. Would you stop beeping for 5 seconds so I can So like very consistent with Luke, in my opinion, the naive pre-Empire Luke. Like Luke didn't even finish the story to see what happened with Yoda, and he's like, no, I'm gonna land on the planet. I'm just gonna go straight into it, dive head first. He probably could have read the story, Mike, before he landed and maybe learned something else.
Probably, yeah.
But he's here now. So
and
there's a mysterious figure,
Garrow, the last of the Rock Hawkers, and you're going to help me finish this war I started.
Garrow's old.
Yeah, he's old. Luke is standing with R5S4, this droid he barely knows, who's scared of R2. And Garrow has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of their glowy
icicles,
blue rock daggers surrounding him. So he's like the last warrior, the last person left here. One tribe tried to drive the not iron giant. That's funny. The mountain giant against the others using their version of the Force to control its heart, basically. And we find out here at the end, once Luke finally keeps reading, what happened.
Yeah, we find out that that Yoda held the giant at bay with the Force. And Yoda is saying, feel the stone, feel it breathing. You must feel the stone, feel it. So Yoda's actually putting into work his newly learned stone Force tribal skills. And there's some really good panels here. A world of nothing and no one. Every Jedi strives to be one with the Force, to feel it binding you to every part of the world around you. A Jedi truly does that is capable of anything his mind can imagine.
Yeah, so, and when we flash back to Yoda, we get some really cool visuals of him literally fighting a mountain with the Force. So all of these Mad Max teenagers are trying to control it with their version of the dark side, and Yoda is stopping this mountain from stepping on him.
That's right. And Yoda pushes the giant back. And
and then
they don't like this.
He uses the goodness of the hearts of the kids who he first met, who have been communing with the Force, the Stone Force, whatever they call it, to raise more of these mountain giants, albeit smaller than the one that Yoda's facing down. So this is where we turn a little Power Rangers-esque.
Yeah.
Because every Power Rangers episode started with human fighting and then ended up with giant robot fighting. Well, we started with human or Yoda scale fighting, and we end up with mountains fighting each other here, which is pretty cool looking, like visually. I dumped on the character art at the beginning, and some of like the faces are still weird, but like these mountains moving around fighting each other are really cool.
Yeah, and then the tribe turns on Yoda, right? Like, if you want to stay on the Yoda tangent before we go back to Luke, I'm just. Yoda says no one else dies. Time to learn to live.
His youngling tribe doesn't turn on him. The teenagers catch up to him and just, well, he's the focal point of all this. Let's just kill them. Let's just kill this little green frog. And
they call him that too, the green frog.
And then he Yoda's them.
He Yoda's them. At the same time, we're jumping back and forth between Luke now being presented with a fight. With our what's his name?
Garrow.
And Garrow is threatening to kill Luke and putting these icicle daggers around Luke. He knocks Luke's blaster out of Luke's hand, Luke's DL-44, and Luke turns on his lightsaber. And I said, I think the Rocks sound a lot like better people than you, so I'm with them. Because basically Garrow's talking about the war and the years that followed.
I do think Garrow's motivation is interesting here and allegorical in some ways, right? Because he's talking about how Yoda started this revolution and endured the first conflict, but then he left and never came back, and no one ever came back. And eventually the kids built ships from the mountains and the mountain hearts and the Stone Force, and they left and they lost their abilities and they never came back. So he feels like the last bastion of this planet's way of life because Yoda came and interfered and led everybody away, which is an interesting villain motivation in Star Wars.
Yeah, Yoda ended the war, actually. He tells Garrow when he's young, put down the spear, Garrow, and help me in this war. And then we, of course, pan to modern-day Garrow with Luke and say, die, you wretched Jedi, and help me in this war. So there's a lot of back and forth here. And the giants and men lived in peace after Yoda left. The casualties of the final battle were few, but grievous nonetheless. And, Luke actually starts protecting the giant people, Mike, as in the putties, the people.
Well, that's right. So Garrow is facing down Luke. He wants to destroy this last group of it's basically like baby versions of the mountain creatures. Like they're smaller than Luke, and he stands in front of them to protect them from Garrow, who wants to finish the war or whatever, because he's like the last maniacal soldier. There was an Archer episode like this where Archer encountered a Japanese soldier from World War II who'd been stranded on an island for years and didn't know the war was over. It's kind of like that. He's trying to fight a war that had been ended and has no point continuing.
So then we have some dialogue where Garrow says to Luke, "You remind me of me. You're nothing but a frightened child, just like I was. Do you know the only thing that I was good at when I was a child?" And Luke's like, "You're not going to stop me." And he says, "The only thing I was good at was walking away." And Garrow walks away from their fight, actually. And says, and then Garrow has a moment. He's touching the giant. It says, "It took you sending this boy to me for me to see. I was the master, and now it's time for my final lesson for Yoda." And what happens next, Mike? We got some interesting mystical stuff.
This is weird. Like Garrow touches a mountain and he absorbs into it. He becomes part of a rock monster. So it's been a neat story up till now. I don't get it at this point. I don't get why Garrow stopped fighting Luke, because Luke didn't really do anything to change his mind. It's like we're supposed to, I guess, assume that Garrow came to these realizations on his own.
He's like flashbacks. He was having flashbacks with his time with Yoda. So maybe that's part of it too.
I guess, but it seems awfully abrupt for him to be like, "Oh, you know what? Never mind. I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to go absorb myself into this mountain monster." So the end of this, I will just say, is not great because it happens really quick, and I'm still kind of confused by it. It might get explained as we read into the next arc. We don't know because we actually haven't read that far.
And I'm assuming, Mike, that Garrow kind of restores life to the giants in doing this and kind of putting down his life. And then we show a scene of Yoda leaving the planet, which now we know happened. But so the Jedi Master returned to the world he knew and vowed to keep the secrets of the world he was leaving.
And I guess we do see on that same 2-page spread proof of Garrow bringing life back to the giants. It looks a lot like Aladdin in the Cave of Wonders coming out of the sand, a new mountain giant popping up, like spitting sand out of its mouth and everything. But just his motivations at the end of this are very strange, and they sort of come out of nowhere for me. I didn't really understand what Garrow's point was in confronting Luke and then deciding not to fight him.
Yeah, maybe just the Yoda flashbacks. I'm not sure. We got some interesting Luke lines here. Luke's reading the journal, and it says, "A Jedi must humble himself before he can ever be powerful." And then Luke says to the little baby giants, "All right, you guys, lead me the way and tell me how we do this. Garrow's sacrifice got all this started, and I'll do what I can to finish this. Let's go and find the heart of the mountain." And then you see Luke going into the mountain with his lightsaber on for illumination. And let's get this heart pumping again, is what he says. And then, of course, we have what you said, Mike, the mountain coming out of the ground, very Aladdin-esque, back to life. And then, of course, the comic ends with a one giant panel page as Yoda essentially is sensing Luke across the galaxy. Similar to Yoda, I guess, in Rebels, speaking with Ezra across the galaxy, but Yoda's feeling Luke's presence, reigniting these people on this mountain, and Yoda's clearly on Dagobah, Mike, and he says, "Yes, soon ready he will be, as ready as he will ever be. Find me then he will. Waiting here I will be."
Oh, you did so good until the very end. It's "here waiting I will be."
Here waiting I will be.
You got Yoda speaked.
That's right. Yeah, it's just natural to want to fix it. But it's pretty cool. Yeah, Yoda's sensing that Luke kind of followed in his footsteps and helped these people come back to life. And Yoda's feeling that across the galaxy, which is great. And Yoda is just sitting on Dagobah. He's ready. He's ready for when Luke finds him.
Yeah, so let's hop back to our questions here. We sort of talked already about how Luke is at the beginning of the story. This is pretty much a direct pickup from the end of the last fight of the Harbinger story arc. He wants to go rescue 3PO. Oh, wait, R2's already gone. I need to go help him or stop him. And our second one, how do the events and characters of the story impact his development? So basically, we read a 4 or 5 issue comic series about Luke reading a textbook, which sounds weird to describe it that way. But we got to see an interesting Yoda story from that. I don't know that Luke has learned all of the right lessons from this story about Yoda. Well, we know that in terms of who Yoda as a person is, he didn't learn them because he pictures Yoda as this big, imposing, physical, powerful warrior.
That's fine, though.
Yeah.
That's Luke from this time period.
Yeah, well, and if Obi-Wan doesn't describe him, what else is Luke supposed to think? So I think that's fine. But he's not even directly interacting with characters in the story other than S4 and then Garrow at the very end. So it is really weird because this was a neat story where not much happened with Luke. We watched Luke read a story.
Yeah, that's right. And is this consistent with the character of Luke in the films, the other Marvel comics, and the new canon books? I think so. I mean, especially in this timeline, Mike, we're still in that post New Hope timeline where we have the youngest, most inexperienced Luke out of all the things we've been covering on the show so far. So
yeah, Luke tells Garrow he's not a Jedi, and even though there is more Yoda in this arc than Luke, it was still a fun read, but there's not a whole lot of time passes for Luke, so we don't get to see just a whole lot of growth or development. But you're right, it is fitting with Luke that we would expect to see between episode 4 and 5.
That's right, Mike, and you just sparked a memory in my mind. Not a lot of time has passed since the beginning of these Marvel comics. At the beginning, 3PO makes it very clear that the first mission they went on and the first issues was only a couple days before the events of this comic. So it's like we have not progressed that far. But Luke's actually learned some couple lessons from, fighting Imperials, being on Last Jedi, dealing with smugglers, encountering Vader for the first time, for better or for worse. And now he's learned about, a parable about a Jedi who was one of the greatest Jedi and the struggles he went through. And he's kind of following in his footsteps.
That's right. So thank you for joining us on that discussion of a comic, any of these Marvel comics arcs that we do. They are great, Luke, stories, but it's really hard to talk in a podcast format about such a visual medium. Thank you for joining us through that. I hope most of it made sense to you. And if it didn't, just go look at Yoda's Secret War is the name of this story arc. And we debated if we would do this because, it's called Yoda's Secret War, but it was definitely worth doing because it's an interesting story about Yoda and it does have direct impact on Luke.
That's right. And Luke is still learning lessons from Ben Kenobi, even though he has been cut down by Vader. He's still learning lessons, which I like a lot. So that's that story, Mike. That's it.
That's right. So we got a new thing here on the show. We have a new promotion for patrons or listeners, you all, here at the Canon Cantina. Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. This week, we are recommending Jedi Search by Kevin J. Anderson. This is the first of the Jedi Academy trilogy, and there's a reason we are recommending Jedi Search. We'll be covering it in the next couple of weeks. So
that's right.
Give it a listen before we talk about it so you can be all up on the story before we get to it. And if you've recently read Jedi Search or you just want to try something else, you can download any other audiobook for free by trying out the Audible service. To get your free audiobook today, go to www.audibletrial.com/thecanoncantina. Again, that's www.audibletrial.com/thecanoncantina for your free audiobook.
That's right, guys. And I mentioned on the show a lot, and I'll continue to mention, I'm pretty confident that Star Wars audiobooks are some of the best audiobooks that exist because they use sound cues, music cues, and they have a very competent group of just readers that
voice actors,
emulate,
narrators,
emulate the voices. Yeah, like they really emulate the Han, Leia, Luke, Lando, all those voices, and of course Chewbacca and R2 are in the stories, and they use real audio clips from the films. It's great.
And if you're like Jesse and I, and you listen to a bunch of these growing up, Jedi Search is narrated by Anthony Heald, who did a bunch of the stories from the 90s when we were kids. So it's a nice flashback of nostalgia.
Very good.
Anyway, enough about that. It's time for the part of the episode I am most excited about.
Oh, no.
So this is a segment I've been excited to do for a while. We don't really have a formal name for it other than I just sort of typed in our show notes. It came from Reddit.
I see through the lies of the Jedi.
He was deceived by a lie.
Okay, so here on It Came from Reddit.
That's so ominous.
I don't know how long this segment's going to go, but this is something I've wanted to do for a while, and I've talked to Jesse about it. Basically, I am going to read some headlines or summaries to Jesse, and he needs to tell me if it's something that I saw on Reddit in the past couple of weeks, or is it something that I made up specifically for this segment. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 10 here.
10?
Yeah. And we're going to go through and see how many you can get right. Is it something that I legitimately read on Reddit in the past couple of weeks, or I made it up for this segment? So these are either headlines on Reddit, just to sort of keep it concise, or if the headline wasn't quite enough information, I've just sort of summarized it into like a one sentence thing.
Oh man, I'm going to fail this.
So all you have to do, Jesse, once I read it, is say whether it's real and I read it online on reddit.com, or it's made up, or it's fake and made up and I came up with it for this segment.
Okay.
And I will keep track as we go and tell you your score at the end.
Oh man. Okay. So we'll just move on after I say it's real or fake to the next one.
That's right. Okay. And at the very end,
summary.
I'll tell you which ones. Actually, no. As we go through, I'll tell you how right you were or not.
Okay.
Anyway, the first one, Snoke was the son of Mortis.
Fake.
That one's real. I did not make that one up. I saw it on Reddit today.
That sounds like Reddit. This is gonna be.
It does sound like Reddit, but you also know how I feel about the Mortis arc in the Clone Wars, and I see why you might have thought I made that one
up. Yeah, I thought I was being baited.
Oh, so you're trying to metagame. You're trying to think how I would think on this one. Nice. In episode 9, the Resistance will reactivate the Separatist droid armies.
Fake.
I read that on Reddit as well.
Oh man, I'm losing bad.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen. Why would that even be on Reddit? Like, I'm all about that. Like, I would kind of be interested to see some of that. It probably wouldn't forward the story at all, so I don't need it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's just a cool thing. It's like the First Order had just cannon fodder out front. You know what I mean? That were just the droids, but weird.
And I think we already sort of saw that in one of the Aftermath books, I think. I forget which one. It's been a while since I've read the three.
Yeah, a little bit.
But they end up finding a battle droid factory or something. All right, so you're 0 for 2 so far.
Oh, no. Now I'm going to course correct, and it's going to be backwards.
It's okay. There's 10 of them. Next one. Snoke incepted Luke during that fateful encounter with Ben. If you've
What do you
seen
mean?
the movie,
Like
like
Luke,
the movie Inception, Snoke planted something in his mind. Inception.
Let's say fake on that.
I read that on Reddit today.
These are all on Reddit. Oh no.
Yeah. That one is one of the more plausible scenarios that I've read, but I did not come up with that. And by the way, if you are the person on Reddit who created any of these, I get it. I got these from subreddits where you are supposed to speculate wildly about Star Wars. I'm not trying to dump on anyone in particular. This is more about me seeing if I can trick Jesse, and I've done a good job so far.
I'm tricked. I also don't spend any time on Reddit, so there's no, I mean, maybe I'm underestimating how far it can go.
All right. Next one. Rey will end up with Finn, not Kylo.
That, I mean, I could see someone posting that on Reddit, but that seems at this point less likely. So
what's your answer?
I guess my answer is fake.
Yeah, I made that one up.
Yeah. That just doesn't even seem, people on Reddit want Kylo and Rey. Come on.
I know. I'm going against like the popular internet speculation with that one. And I don't think it will happen, by the way. I think Rey permanently friend-zoned Finn, and he will probably end up with Rose, which I'm okay with. I liked Rose. Or if maybe Finn ends up with Poe, that would be even cooler.
That's so funny. Rey was giving Finn some eyes at the end of the Last Jedi. Like, she was a little jealous. Rose was.
That's true.
The blanket thing with Rose. She's like, "What's going on there?
But
what have I missed?"
She also met Poe and everything, and
it's true.
Yeah,
it's complicated. It's complicated.
All right, so you have gotten one right. I made that last one.
Oh my!
All right, next one. Rey is the daughter of Ezra and Sabine.
Let's say that's a Reddit one.
Yeah, that's a Reddit one.
Yeah, that's definitely a Reddit one.
I would never come up with that one because as longtime listeners,
I wasn't metagaming that one. No.
Yeah, that one's pretty easy.
But you're right. You wouldn't come up with that. Yeah.
As longtime listeners can remember, I don't ever want to see Ezra again. So I would never, come up with that
though,
theory.
I mean, I could see Sabine being Rey's mom because they're both so good at everything.
I hate that you said that, and it made so much sense. Well done, sir.
He's talented at everything.
Whew. Next one. Plagueis is Anakin and becomes Snoke.
I can't even comprehend what that means. What does that mean? Plagueis has always been Anakin?
Plagueis is Anakin and becomes Snoke.
Oh God. I'm gonna say this is a Reddit thing.
Yeah, I threw that one in there like because
it's a curveball.
I would have felt bad if you had missed all of them until now. I was like, he'll get that one for sure because I don't even understand what that one means.
That's on Reddit though.
Yeah, that was from Reddit, so you guessed it right. And I tried to read what justified that headline, and it was so much text that I was like, nope, I need to find more of these for the list.
Yeah, you're like, don't have time.
Okay, so you started off cold, but you've since caught up. You're 3 and 3 right now. 3 right, 3 wrong.
Ooh.
All right, next one. Rey killed her parents.
False.
False, as in I made that up?
Yeah.
Yeah, nope, that's on Reddit. There are so many different threads over Reddit actually talking about this.
Oh my.
Yeah, I had not taken the time to read into the justification for all of them because I did see like 3 or 4 different like topics about it. But I certainly hope that's not true.
Yeah, that's probably that's where I'm at. So
we've been told for 2 movies about Rey's parents. Maz said they're never coming back, and Kylo told us they were filthy junk traders dead in a pauper's grave. We know about Rey's parents. Let's move on.
All right.
Next one. Snoke was Palpatine's son.
Oh my God. Let's say fake on that one.
Yeah, I made that one up.
Okay.
Good job.
Oh my. Is it hard?
Like I try to be ridiculous, and I can't out ridiculous some of the stuff I see online.
No, some of those have really gotten me.
All right, we got two more. Of varying levels of ridiculousness. Rey is a clone.
That's Reddit.
Yeah, it's Reddit. I tried to read through the logic of it, and basically it sort of goes back to when we talked about the original Thrawn trilogy. She's cloned from Luke's hand or something.
Okay.
You can't fit all that exposition into one movie in episode 9.
No.
And this last one is really just bonus because I wanted to read it on the show. I hope you get this one right. Snoke was Kylo returned via time travel.
Fake?
Yeah, that's from Reddit.
Okay.
So I guess time travel was somewhat introduced.
It was.
In the World Between Worlds, one of the last episodes of Rebels in season 4. That's how Ezra rescued Ahsoka from being slashed to death by Darth Vader. There's no way this one's true. Like, Snoke is a giant-ish alien, right? He's like 7.5 feet tall.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back.
Sequined robes.
Hey, you actually did pretty good. You ended up with 6 correct.
Okay.
And 4 misfires. So you started off really cold. You did miss the first 3, but from then on, you only missed 1.
I just did well. Yeah.
So
I figured out how ridiculous the game was that point onward.
you did better than I thought you might.
I underestimated.
I had been excited to do that segment for a while, and I doubt it's the last time that we do that segment.
I love it.
We'll see how much I can keep trolling Jesse here on the show. So that was It Came from Reddit.
All right, now we're done with the Reddit stuff. Let's go over to the Dejarik table.
Think. You want to make that move. You want to make that move. You made that move, okay. I guess I'll have to destroy that little guy. Somehow I never get bored with winning. No, you can't wipe them off. They're holograms. Hey, Chewie, relax. Hey.
So by the time you're listening to this, you're maybe listening to this while you are playing Star Wars Battlefront 2. I know we probably are.
Yeah, certainly.
Except we're not listening to this because we've already heard it. We don't listen to our own podcast, or at least I don't.
Right. Well, I would say this is out now, Mike. So what happened on November 28th, which if you guys are listening right when we posted this, it's probably right around that time or a couple days later. The Geonosis update has come to Battlefront 2. So a lot of you guys have been hearing me go on tirades about this and talking about what was coming. This is kind of the beginning of all the future content. We had Grievous first, but and that was nice. But this is kind of the first big free expansion sort of update for the game. So let's talk about what's in the game right now. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, we have a giant new map that is the Battle of Geonosis at the end of Attack of the Clones, and it is actually the largest map now in the Battlefront 2 game for Galactic Assault.
It figures they'd pull the coolest level from the worst movie.
Well, we talked about this before. Like it's pretty synonymous that people think this is the worst movie, but also this pretty synonymous that this is one of people's favorite battles to play in video game format. Fair. And to watch in the movie, I guess. So Attack of the Clones does have that going for it. But so let's talk about this real quick, Mike. So starting this week and going till essentially Monday at midnight, so Sunday at midnight, I guess, they are doing a 5-day Geonosis marathon of this map. So anytime you get on Battlefront 2 and queue up for a Galactic Assault, you will be playing Geonosis, which I think is really great, Mike, because no one's played the map yet until now, so we're trying to experience it. The map has new battle droids. It has those Geonosis colored battle droids, new clone troopers, and new vehicles, the battle droid Stap, the clone trooper ATTE, the turtle walker is what I like to call it.
Nice.
And a lot of other speeders and things like that are already in the game, some that are just clone trooper things. And I've also got to mention, Mike, that with this expansion, we have finally gotten the one and only. Yeah, there it is. The one and only General Kenobi, the bold one. So, and it's pretty exciting. I do have to say, Obi-Wan finally being in the game is kind of, it's about time. Let's just say that.
Well, I bet it is fun to control a character in game that looks just like you. No,
I don't have him yet. I don't have him yet.
I'm excited for this. I don't have Grievous unlocked or Obi-Wan unlocked. And I mentioned a couple episodes ago that I don't play Battlefront regularly anymore, so I don't have enough credits to do all this stuff. I'm actually in favor of microtransactions coming back so that I could just buy these characters. I know I'm probably in the minority on that, and that's fine. I don't think they need to be in the game from the very beginning, but once it's been out for a year plus, like Battlefront 2 has, sure, let some scrubs like me who aren't any good anyway take a crack at these new characters. I do like that the Geonosis map is free. I don't have to worry about unlocking it or anything. I will definitely be jumping into that.
Yeah, we got a 5-day marathon of it too, right?
Yeah, and as much as I crap on that movie, this will be a very cool video game level.
That's right, Mike. And in order to help you, Mike, attain your Grievous or Obi-Wan credits, so I told you guys that starting the 28th to the end of the 2nd will be the Marathon of Geonosis. So hope you're playing right now, enjoying this. Also, the 30th through the 2nd, so the entire weekend, will be this double XP weekend. I mentioned this a while back, but essentially you get double the XP for everything you do in the game that entire weekend, Mike. So it's like putting an hour or two into the game is essentially putting in like 4 hours into the game. So that would actually earn you credits. Yeah, earn you credits twice as fast. Everyone's going to be playing Geonosis anyways because everyone wants to see it. So you might as well jump in, get double XP, and save up those credits for Obi-Wan and Grievous. And I got to mention too, Mike, they unveiled new Grievous skins and new Obi-Wan skins as well when these characters dropped. Now we have they call it like a shattered Grievous. It's essentially half of Grievous's armor is gone. His wires are exposed. He's been burned. It's a very Terminator 2 looking Grievous.
The moment before death.
Yes. And then they have a cloaked Obi-Wan. So save your credits for these things. And I haven't mentioned yet, but they've also released the new Clone Trooper armor variants. These specifically are the ones I really like. They're the ones with the commander colorings on them. If you're familiar with that, Mike, the yellowish orange color that some of the commanders have of the battle droids and the clone troopers.
I was gonna say it is funny that the battle droids and the clones had the same command colors denoting, commanders.
Yeah, you're right. They're both indispensable. I don't know. That's maybe what they're saying. But I've got a little tag in on this fun the Jark table segment that I didn't tell Mike about or anything like that. But it's a fun thing that references Obi-Wan, the hello there man himself. So this is a thing I found on the internet. It says Obi-Wan is the master of the low ground. So we always know Obi-Wan talks about the high ground.
I saw this. I agree with this.
And this is so good. And they have the proofs laid out in bullet points. So let's go through these proofs. Slash Darth Maul into 2 after being on the low ground. Episode 1. Gave up the high ground to say the iconic hello there line and proceeded to shoot Grievous from the low ground to defeat General Grievous. Episode 3. Taunted Anakin that he had the high ground, which as his pupil, Anakin knew that the high ground was not his speciality, and in a burst of anger leapt above him, in parentheses, and gave Obi-Wan the advantage, once again, of the low ground. Episode 3.
Yeah, I actually saw that, and I think it's great that you brought that into the show. Go back and watch those 3 scenes, and you'll see, oh yeah, Obi-Wan actually does fight better from the low ground.
It's pretty good. He kills a lot of people, a lot of villains from the low ground. And I had to mention that because now with Grievous and Obi-Wan in the game, fight from that low ground, guys. And I'm so excited to try Obi-Wan, Mike. I'm not really sure how he plays. I've watched some videos, but I want to know if he's, more sluggish than some of the other Jedi. I assume he's more sluggish than Luke because he's more that Ataru defensive style. We will see. Only time will tell. I'm super excited to play him. And I do know that when you encounter Grievous in the game, they exchange taunts with each other, which is great.
Nice.
So they say, General Kenobi, I will wipe you out and things like that. And Obi-Wan makes fun of Grievous. It's all good. I cannot wait.
That's great. All right, let's go ahead and start closing this thing out. We've got a couple reviews that we want to read. We've picked up a lot of ratings and a lot of reviews in the past couple weeks. So thank you very much to everybody who's clicked 5 stars. We've still only gotten 5-star ratings. I'm a little disappointed in you trolls that give us 1 star and a funny story. Because if you give us 1 star and a funny story, I'll read it still. But we greatly appreciate every rating and review we've gotten so far. I'll take the first one. TG Heller says, a good show, a whole deep dive podcast on Luke Skywalker and his stories. I love it. This show is great. Give these guys a listen. So that sound you hear is me reaching behind my back with both arms, patting myself on the back, and we've got the Skype video call so Jesse can actually see it as proof.
Yes.
Thank you for that and those kind words, TG Heller. It's very, affirming and validating to know that other people do love listening to Jesse and I have conversations we might have without a podcast anyway.
Right. That's so true. Let's talk about this other review we have here. The review is from Scooby Midnight Snacks. I absolutely love the name. The title is First Star Wars Podcast. This is the first Star Wars podcast I've subscribed to. Considering this show is fairly new, in quotes, these guys have the formula and discussion down like they were professionals.
I really appreciate that one as well. And when you think about it, we haven't actually hit our formal episode 20 yet. Because I think this one is 18 or 19. I should know this without...
We're past 20 with the bonus episodes, of course.
Yeah.
But our standard format show, as in a Luke Skywalker story, you're right, Mike. We're coming right up on 20, but we're not there yet. So I really appreciate someone at home, first of all, writing us a review and giving us a 5-star rating, because that helps us out so much, as I mentioned on the show. And then writing something this kind that basically says... we sound like know what we're doing on a podcast, which, to be a little bit fair to us, Mike, we were semi-seasoned podcast guys for a couple of years when it came to the Star Wars board game world.
That's true. We had separate podcasts, but I don't know that anybody ever dropped the P-bomb on us before, like professionals.
Ooh, well, there you go. So if you guys want to have your review read on the show, jump on one of your Apple devices and pull up the podcast app and give us a review. 5-star reviews are just great, just giving us the stars. But if you can write a review, that actually helps the exposure of the show, helps us climb the Apple algorithm, and helps the show be found by new listeners. So the best thing you can do for us is just write us a review. You can be funny. We've actually, a couple funny ones are coming up, Mike, on future episodes. I'm ready to read.
Nice.
And also, your name could be funny. It could be Scooby Midnight Snacks. That's pretty good. So do whatever you want.
And if you are a listener on a not Apple device, we do try to check these other places that people can listen to the podcast. But if you have left a review somewhere that we haven't mentioned in a while, let us know and we will go back and read it, because we do appreciate all of those. That we've just got the show posted through so many places, we don't always remember to check all of them.
That's right. And I appreciate you guys just leaving the reviews, and helps us out so much. So please keep it up. The more reviews we grow, the show grows from it. So it's just a cycle, which is great. So without getting too detailed, Mike, we have some exciting stuff coming in the future we're going to tell you guys about, and we can't say any of it yet, but a lot of it's coming, and you guys' reviews are helping with that as well.
Absolutely. So to get a preview of things that are coming, go to our new website, thecanoncantina.com. That's got links to all of our social media. You can listen to the show there, stream the show. You can find our Discord server there to chat with us. Did you see that we picked up an ad bot today that I still need to kick off the server? That was kind of funny.
I did not see
I don't know
that.
how they ended up there. But you'll see links to Our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, plus some other things that we are working to build towards. If you check on the other pages on the website.
Yeah, that's so true. And once again, guys, the Canon Cantina is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, Podcast Addict, and we upload all of our episodes to YouTube. So if you just want to listen via YouTube, and we're on Spotify. Thank you for everyone who's listening on Spotify. Please keep that up. And Mike, I've got to mention, now we have a Twitch. Is that right?
Technically, that is a correct statement. I don't actually know if that one is linked from our new website yet. I need to double check that.
Yeah, we'll double check that. But our Twitch is called The Canon Cantina, so it's easy to find. And Mike, my goal I've put on myself for this week is to stream some Star Wars Battlefront 2 on our Twitch. So this is something I've never done via my computer. I've streamed board games for many years via Twitch. So I'm thinking it's a similar process. So if you guys want to watch me earn my credits to get General Kenobi, I will be streaming on Twitch. And I will post on the Facebook and the Twitter when I am streaming Battlefront 2 this weekend during the Double XP event. And, it's just something to have on the background. A lot of people these days have Twitch on their iPads, on their PlayStations, on their phones, and it's just something that people like to have on in the background. I would love if you guys followed our Twitch and talk to us in the chat. I would love to talk with you, and we want to get this Twitch going in the future. We have actually a lot of fun, free content planned for you guys in the future on the Twitch. And we can't get too specific right now, but we want you to know the Twitch is out there now and to start following.
That's right. So join me in heckling Jesse while he plays Battlefront, even though he's probably better than I am at it. So like we've said, please subscribe, rate, and review. If there's something you think we can do better, send us an email at canoncantina@gmail.com. Excuse me. And we had so much fun with Dark Empire last week that we're going to do it again next week. Next week, we are jumping into Dark Empire 2, the sequel to the Dark Empire Dark Horse comic arc. That's a lot of darks all in a row there.
That's right. So if you guys want to follow along at home, you could read Dark Empire 2 on Comixology or the Marvel Unlimited app. They actually have all the old Dark Empire stuff on there. And if you want to stay ahead of the curve and read probably one of the most pivotal points of Legends coming up in the near future, you could start listening to our Audible subscription, like we mentioned earlier, and getting that free Jedi Search audiobook and being ready because we will be jumping into the Jedi Academy trilogy soon.
Yeah, just like we did our Thrawn trilogy back to back to back. In a couple of weeks, we will jump into the Jedi Academy trilogy in the same way.
Personal favorite of mine, Mike. A personal favorite of mine.
We'll see if it's anywhere close to that for me upon revisiting 20 years later.
Oh my. That's so true.
Thanks everybody for joining us here in the Canon Cantina. Cheers, everybody.
May the Force be with you.
Boring conversation anyway.